Hey, you. Yeah, you. What you doing? I know what I'm doing. I'm starting off right with Talking About the Blues podcast, baby.
What's going on, good folks? You are now Blues, and we're talking about the Blues, number one podcast in New York City, Blues podcast at that. And we have a very, very special guest today. We have the founder of the Real Delta Tours and Artistry coming from Mississippi, Mr. Abe Hudson. What's going on, my brother?
Hey, what's up, New York, by way of the Mississippi Delta? I hope everybody's doing well. Jack, I'm just glad to be on with you.
Groovy. I am too. This is an interview we've been trying to schedule for some time, and finally we're honored to hear and understand about the Real Delta Tours because, as everyone knows, though there's some that debate this fact, the blues and, for what it's worth, American music as a whole really cultivated in the Delta. Now, with that being said, Brother Abe, please explain to us what the Real Delta Tour and Artistry is all about.
Oh, no problem at all. Again, we're glad to be on today and be able to share what Real Delta Tours and Artistry is all about. A couple of years ago, about 3-4 years ago, my wife and I, who both of us were in a new relationship with one another, we both realized that we had a passion for the Mississippi Delta. This area is full of Native American, civil rights, blues, and all kinds of history and culture. And what we wanted to do was figure out a way to do two things. One, give a chance to give tourists, people who are not from here, people who are in New York, California, London, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you are, we wanted you all to get a chance to see the Delta through our eyes, through people's eyes who really love this area and see the value in it. But most importantly, the second thing is we wanted to instill a love and a passion for the Mississippi Delta in young people and folks who already live here in the Mississippi Delta. And so we think that we've done a pretty good job of doing that, but guess what? We're excited about doing even more. Primarily what we do is take people out on tours and excursions of the Mississippi Delta. And just to highlight a few places, we take them to Robert Johnson's gravesite. We take them to the place where Muddy Waters actually left a train station in Mississippi to head to Chi-Town, where he became the king of the blues. We take folks to Glendora, Mississippi, where Sonny Boy Williams is from. And we also, that's just the blues aspect of it. We take people on civil rights excursions where we take folks to the courthouse where the Emmett Till trial occurred. We also take them to the place where his body was found. We take folks to the actual place where he was embalmed in Tutwiler, Mississippi. And some of these communities a lot of people have never heard of, but we like sharing them with folks who come to visit us. We like to share our Native American history and Civil War history. In Friars Point, Mississippi, there's a really small museum there, but it's really important and very impactful, where there's a lot of Native American artifacts there and also some Civil War artifacts. I know that Mississippi has a very contested history as it relates to civil rights and the Civil War, but one of the things that we try really hard to do, whether it be blues, whether it be civil rights, the Civil War, Native American history, we try to deal with or talk about our contested history so that we can not only have a better understanding, but that we can create that dialogue and we can learn from one another. So, Jack, we're ecstatic about being on with you. We want to talk more about, what it is that we're doing here. And, as a matter of fact, today was a great day for us to be doing this interview. I'm headed to New Orleans for a conference. It is a conference for entrepreneurship, but I'm going to be passing through some really cool communities. I actually live in Shelby, Mississippi. I work in Cleveland, Mississippi, where Delta State University is, and also the brand new Grammy Museum.
That's right.
The only Grammy Museum outside of Los Angeles It's right here in Cleveland, Mississippi. I'm going to be passing through Shaw, Mississippi in just a minute. I'll be then passing through Indianola, Mississippi, where B.B. King's museum is and where he is also laid to rest. Everybody knows the King was recently laid to rest some months back, and that caused a big stir in the state and internationally as well. And then last but not least, one of the places I'll be passing through is Belzoni, Mississippi. If the folks who are listening don't know, Belzoni, Mississippi is the catfish capital of the world.
All right now.
If you've never had catfish, Jack, you got to get to the Mississippi Delta and try some of this Mississippi Delta raised catfish cooked here in the Delta. So as you can see, I could go on and on about the Delta, but it's really interesting because I'm driving today and I'll be passing through some of these communities that I'm going to be talking about.
Well, that's groovy. And I mean, you've hit on so many points that I'm really excited to discuss. Me, myself, my grandparents, my mother's parents were born and raised in Gloucester, Mississippi. And
In Gloucester, Mississippi?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yes, sir. And my grandmother was Native American. I'm still trying to find out if my grandfather was. He was a dark brother like myself, but he has strong Native American features. That's something that we're looking into right now. We start family out there, and the other side of my family is from Louisiana. So I have...
Well, you know what, Jack? There are a lot of folks, if they really researched their history, they would find out that they're similar to you. They have they're like gumbo. They have a couple different parts to them, and they wouldn't be the person who they are if they didn't have a little sausage or a little okra in them, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I do. And I mean, let me just tell you that I am not a happy camper if I don't have a little okra in me. Now, I just want to talk about, because I want to start off talking about the impact on what you two are doing, because just on the side of, well, I can't say on the side of the blues, because the music, the culture, the history, the climate of the area all kind of meshes. They all come, they were all birthed out of these same situations. It's really important that you guys are actually bringing people to, Emmett Till. How are those conversations when you bring your clients to these places? How do they receive that part of American history?
I think that's a very good question. And I can easily say that it depends on the group. We have had groups where we've had a 55 passenger bus full of Caucasians. We've had a 55 passenger bus full of blacks. We've had a 55 passenger bus full of a mixed group of people. We've had, because we do big tours and we also do 1 and 2 person tours, we've had tours where we have taken 1 or 2 people out and we've given them an opportunity to hear the story of Emmett Till. But interestingly enough, everybody responds very differently. When we're on those 55 passenger tour buses, we can tell that the story is a little uncomfortable for some people to hear.
Right.
There are some people who are very engaged. They want to ask more questions about this teenage boy who came to the Mississippi Delta, who allegedly whistled at a white woman and was brutally killed as a result of it. And there are a lot of different stories around what actually happened. End of the day, this young man was killed, and I think you and I and a lot of other people would agree, regardless of what he did or what happened, he didn't deserve to be killed.
No.
And it reflects the perspective of some Mississippi Deltans at that time.
Right.
And so for me, what I find myself doing is helping to make sense of the story. Because if you live here in the Mississippi Delta, you know that there are a lot of players who are still here. There are a lot of black folks who were really close to the relatives of Emmett Till. There were a lot of folks who were close to Brian and Milam, the individuals that actually killed Emmett Till or who were responsible. And so I enjoy talking to both sides and making sure that both sides of the story are told. And so what do I mean by that? there are some black folks who honestly were not excited about what happened, and that's understandable.
Right.
But there are also some white folks in this community who certainly have a reason to say, you know what, those were my relatives. I don't stand by what they did, but I still have to live here in this community.
Right.
And so what I like to do is make sure that people dialogue and talk about it so that we as a community, both black and white, can come together and figure out a way to make the Mississippi Delta, Mississippi period, a better place. I don't like the bad rap that our state gets oftentimes because of our contested history. And so what we're trying to do through our tours is to be able to tell a new story, show that, yeah, we've had some things that have happened in our past. We have a contested history, but guess what? We're moving forward. We're moving forward not just individually as a race of people, saying blacks or whites, but we're moving together as a community. Now, is it tough sometimes? Is it difficult to have those conversations? Absolutely. But I think if we can start having the conversations and then allowing other people from the outside to help us to come in and have those conversations, I truly believe healing can happen and will occur.
That's deep, and that's very groovy because, the reality of the situation is Mississippi was the epicenter of I want to say the entire civil rights movement.
Oh, absolutely. Look, if Rosa Parks said on more than one occasion when she was sitting down on the bus and refused to get up, one of the things that she was thinking about was Emmett Till. And that is very moving.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have a situation here where our state to the nation and internationally looks really, really bad, but it did spark or light a fire under some people who really made a difference in the movement. And for that, I am excited because you never know. If that had not happened to Emmett and he had not been the humble martyr that he was, then it's very possible that Rosa Parks wouldn't have made her stand. She wouldn't have inspired the folks in her state.
Right.
So, one thing leads to another, and as we all, certainly feel like, you hate someone to lose their life at that age, but you know that it was certainly a spark for a lot of people in the movement.
Right. I mean, Medgar Evers
girls losing their lives in when the church was bombed.
Right. The 4 girls at the church, Medgar Evers. There's just a lot of stuff that comes out of Mississippi, good and bad. Now, I want to touch on something.
Sure.
Because here's something that's not discussed often that you also have part of the tour, which I find extremely interesting, and I'm happy that it's part of because everything is so black and white. The Native American aspect of Mississippi.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, people don't talk about our Native American history enough. And I was writing something here recently, and I found out that New York also has a rich Native American history. Well, guess what? The entire country did, because before it was the United States, our country was populated by Indians and by Native American folks. And I think it's important for us to always and to be able to continue to give homage to those individuals because before we were here as a country, those individuals got an opportunity to farm the land, enjoy an agricultural way of life by using the river that we have still continued to benefit from up until this day. And so Mississippi, or the Mississippi Delta in particular, was nothing but swamps. If you can imagine, it was nothing but swamps. And those folks were here, and they survived. And if it were not for the strides that they have made as far as agriculture, the United States, Mississippi, would probably not be the place that it was. It was an attractive place because of what they were already doing before we got here. And so it is important to always pay homage to folks who came before you. And Mississippi, the Mississippi Delta has made a lot of money as it relates to agriculture. And those folks were the forefathers of that, and certainly like to tip our hats to them. There is a 6-foot by 6-foot painting in my home that was done by a young lady who lives in Shaw, Mississippi. I just passed Shaw, Mississippi. If you're ever in the Mississippi Delta, certainly when you pass by Shaw, give a thumbs up. There's a young lady by the name of Anna Reginelli, and she did a series of artwork that she had featured in our space in Clarksdale, Mississippi, because not only do we do tours and we do custom handmade invitations, but we also feature artists in our art gallery. She did a series of Native American Indians in our space, and it just took everybody aback because they were such huge paintings, and they had so much life and so much meaning, and it really gave people an opportunity to say, you know what, we do need to make sure that we recognize and pay attention to the Native American culture that exists here. And so I think a lot of times it's pushed up under the rug because you don't see much information up about that heritage and that part of our culture, but it is very important.
It is. And now, we're going to get back to the civil rights and the history of Mississippi, but I would like to talk about the fact that you guys have an art gallery that's part of the Real Delta Tours. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Oh my gosh. Look, I am not an art aficionado. Let me start off by saying that, but I love art. I love the opportunity to be able to see how people have expressed themselves via the arts, because oftentimes art has a silent way of impacting your mind, your heart, your soul, and your whole being. Without saying a word, art can make a person change their entire ideology about the way they feel about something. And it can get folks who wouldn't normally get an opportunity to talk together, to communicate, to examine, to expose, to dissect an issue, so that when you leave, everybody feels like they've grown, everybody is in a different place. And so for the past 2 years, my wife, Adrienne, and I have operated this art gallery in Clarksdale, Mississippi, that also acts as our home base. And also we do we make handmade invitations. And so getting back to the artwork, we've featured about 8 to 9 artists, painters. We've featured about 3-4 photographers, and that is exciting because a lot of these individuals are from the Mississippi Delta. They're based in the Mississippi Delta, and if it had not been for the gallery, many of them would not have gotten the opportunity to showcase how talented or how amazing of an artist some of them are. And so with us being from the Mississippi Delta, with the Grammy Museum coming here, and with a creative economy that is really starting to flood the Mississippi Delta, it's a perfect time to highlight and to showcase many of these talented artists. Some of them are self-taught. Some of them have had the opportunity to get some education and some schooling so that they can be better artists. But either way, we'd like to make sure that we wanted to make sure we created a platform so that those folks could be heard, seen, and just perceived in any way that the outside looker would be able to perceive them. So yeah, we're fired up about the fact that we were able to showcase several artists over the past couple of years.
Wow, I mean that's groovy. So now you guys do you make invitations, personalized custom invitations. What is that about?
Look, my wife has always been a creative person since we met and even before. And so she makes custom, her and her team make custom handmade invitations for weddings, baby showers, bar mitzvahs, wedding anniversaries. She does programs for weddings, and everything that we do is handmade. We make 3 and 4 layer invitations for different events, and we love it because what it does is it gives us an opportunity to employ some people here locally on a part-time basis to be creative and to help us to put a handmade good from the Mississippi Delta in the market. And we've made goods for people in Mississippi, certainly, but also in Tennessee and other surrounding states. And we're looking forward to being able to do business with people who are not in our area as well, because we do ship. But we think that we have some creative people here, my wife being one of them, and we want to show people that you can be educated, you can be uneducated, but if you have a skill set and a talent, it doesn't matter what your educational level, you can still be a part of the economy. You can still be a part of the creative economy, which is creating income. And as you well know, the Mississippi Delta right now, from a economic perspective, from an employment perspective, we're not where we're going to be.
Right.
And I certainly know that it's going to take small business owners who have vision and foresight to know that, look, I can't just make money for myself. I have to create jobs for 4 or 5 other people so that we can truly begin to turn our economy around. You know,
Absolutely.
I'm just able to pay my mortgage and be able to, if I'm able to put food on my table and I'm not able to assist some other folks in doing it, really, I'm a servant to my job. And so what we want to do is really make people employers, and an employer has employees.
That's
and
right.
So what those employees can then do is have a livable wage so that they can then go out and pay mortgages. They can put food on their table, save money for college tuition for their kids. And so for us, we're hopeful and optimistic that we'll get a chance to employ more young people and Mississippi Deltans as we continue to grow our business.
That's very groovy. So what's the climate, besides the economic climate, what is the climate of Mississippi right now, especially where we are today in politics and all the rhetoric?
Sure. Well, the only person I can speak for is myself, Jack. You read the newspaper, you can gather what the climate is pretty much yourself. But for me, the climate for me is love and together we can. I truly feel like we're in a really special time here in Mississippi. We are in a phase where we're getting the opportunity to recreate ourselves and showcase ourselves to the world.
Right.
And we are not as developed as many of the other states that are a part of the union, and that's okay with me. But what that does say to me is that we have an opportunity to start from square one and build up. I don't pay much attention to what people are saying as it relates to us being 50th in a lot of statistics. You can focus on the negative and never perceive any of the positive things that you have going on.
Right.
And so for me, I'm excited about the fact that I'm feeling a genuine love from all the people that I deal with and that I get a chance to communicate with. And I'm beginning to have conversations around the fact that together we can change our state and our region. And when I say our region, I mean the Mississippi Delta region. Our region has been suffering from a population decrease, but guess what? I truly believe that in the next 15 to 20 years, you're going to see people want to retire in a place like the Mississippi Delta, where they can have a certain quality of life and the cost of living is inexpensive.
Right.
And if we begin to market that as Mississippi Deltans, you better watch out. A lot of your New York friends and a lot of folks that you know, they'll come here and they'll be a part of our tax base, Jack. So I'm coming for all the New Yorkers.
Well, you just never know. You never know, because the reality of the situation is, like you said earlier, a huge creative community is growing out there. I mean, the tax incentives to shoot film, a whole bunch of things is happening down there. Matter of fact, let's talk about one stop that I'm sure that's on your tour, Clarksdale, and all the stuff that's going on there. How's that part of the tour?
Clarksdale is great. As a matter of fact, our business is based in Clarksdale. And Mayor Bill Luckett is there and is doing some wonderful things. If you've never been to Juke Joint Festival in April, you need to get your tails to Clarksdale, Mississippi. It is the livest scene from a blues perspective that you want to see. There are about 25 to 30 clubs, venues that are playing live blues music over a 2-day period.
Wow.
And there is so much I could say, but Clarksdale is it's the crossroads. It's the place where many people feel like the blues is not only still alive, but where it came alive. You know, you have Muddy Waters who left there. He grew up on a plantation right outside Clarksdale, and he left from Clarksdale going to Chi-Town. And you have so many people who are there who are participating. You have, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Red Payton. Red is a juke joint owner in Clarksdale, Mississippi. He's been internationally recognized several times. His son just recently got elected to the House of Representatives. He's a fraternity brother of mine. He's a member of Phi Alpha fraternity. But they're really looking to continue showing people what the blues is all about. And so 3-4 nights a week, Red Payton has live blues music. You'll never go in there and hear a DJ. You'll never hear somebody on a turntable. All you'll hear is live music. That's what he does, you know. And, you know, if you go, tell him I sent you. He might offer you something else that I don't want to say over the radio. But he's, man, he is a great ambassador for the Mississippi Delta and Clarksdale. So if you ever get to Clarksdale, Mississippi, you want to check out Red's Juke Joint.
Oh, absolutely.
There's another place called Ground Zero. Bill Luckett, the mayor, him and Morgan Freeman. I'm sure many of you have heard of Morgan Freeman. Yes, the actor Morgan Freeman has a club, a juke joint in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And the name of it is called Ground Zero. They are doing an amazing job continuing to make sure that the blues heritage is continued in Clarksdale. And it's just a dope spot to go to, man. I mean, they've had a lot of cool events there that I've attended. And so you also got your smaller juke joints. There's a cat by the name of Stan Street. He has a juke joint that is really, really cool. Him and his wife, Dixie, they're really putting it down from a blues perspective. They're implants. They're from another place, but they have moved there, and they just love the blues scene.
Right.
The last guy I want to mention is the guy who puts on the Juke Joint Festival. His name is Roger Stoley. Roger has a really cool blues store that sells everything from records to CDs to paintings, artwork, diddly bows, all kinds of artifacts that people have made that, you know, people can take home and appreciate once they've left the Mississippi Delta. And so, long story short, there are a lot of people who are contributing to this creative economy. And so I know you asked me about Clarksdale, but I'm right now passing through Indianola, Mississippi, and we just took a group to Indianola, Mississippi last weekend. There are people who are taking river cruises down the Mississippi River via the American Queen cruise. And so when they dock where I grew up, which is Greenville, Mississippi, and this is one of the places where the 1927 flood just really hit this community really bad, but they built it back up.
Good.
And Greenville, Mississippi is the community that I grew up in. Mayor Eric Simmons is there now. He just newly elected. He's doing some great things over there. And one of the things that they have going for him is this American Queen tour comes and docks there. And we have over the past year and a half, when they dock, we take 45 or 50 of their folks and we drive them 30 minutes over to Indianola, give them a tour of the B.B. King Museum, take them to Club Ebony where B.B. First played, and also he now owns that club. And we go in there and we eat and shake a tail feather and have a great time because they get a chance to get live music, eat catfish, banana pudding, really get some Delta flavor when they come here, and they leave with big smiles on their faces, and they blow us up via social media telling us how much they appreciate it. And our hope is that they want to come back. And
Right.
so you got Clarksdale, you got Indianola, like I said, you got Cleveland, Mississippi. Just a couple of weekends ago, we opened the Grammy Museum there, and that was huge for us because not only do you have that Grammy Museum now, but you have the B.B. King Museum, you got the Emmett Till Museum, you got the Delta Blues Museum in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And so for a person like me who enjoys museums and who enjoys history, I don't have to just come to the Mississippi Delta and spend one day. I can come and spend 4 or 5 days, take all this in, soak it up, and go back having a real Mississippi Delta experience. And so certainly I'd love to, along with my wife, we'd love to be able to give you the tour. And so Real Delta Tours is here for you. But a lot of people come, Jack, and they get in their car. They fill their cooler up with whatever they decide to fill their cooler up with. I'm not going to say what some folks fill their coolers up with because state troopers here don't play.
All right now.
But they hit those back roads, man, and they have a great time. Because the roads and our blues markers and our stories, they really create an experience that's like no other place. I put a quote on social media a couple of days ago. It was yesterday. The Mississippi Delta, the only way you can talk about it and you can see it, but the best way to get it, the real Mississippi Delta, is to experience it. And so we want you to come. Anybody that's listening, if you've never been here, if you're curious about Native American culture, civil rights, history, the Civil War, blues music, you need to get your tail down to the Mississippi Delta. One other thing, I could go on and on, Jack.
No, it's okay.
Fires Point, Mississippi. Anybody out there that's a country music fan, you know who Conway Twitty is and what his impact has been on music. Conway Twitty was born and raised in Fires Point, Mississippi. But the cool part about it is he's gone on record and said that one of the inspirations for him musically was when he used to sit up and listen to music coming from a black church in Fires Point, Mississippi. And I think that's cool.
Yeah, very.
Because here you have a country music guy who was influenced by not only gospel music, but the blues heritage of the Mississippi Delta.
That's right.
And I think that's amazing, and it says a lot about our area.
It does. It does. Hey, let me ask you this, because there's so much to see and take in. So what I would like to know is, one, how many days is the tour? And two, how do you put together the stops you guys are going to make on the tour?
Oh, that's a very good question, Jack. So, I know you're a blues guy. Am I correct or incorrect?
You're very correct.
And so you might say, look, Abe, I'll be in the Delta for 2 days. I want to hit a couple of spots. And what we'll do is ask you, do you have some spots in mind? And certainly we'll take into consideration that you want to go to B.B. King's Museum and that you want to go to the Grammy Museum. But what we might do is tell you a little bit more about Sonny Boy Williams, who's in Glendora, or tell you about a couple of the other musicians that are here. Maybe Muddy Waters and Stovall. Is take the amount of days that you're going to be here, couple it with your particular interest, and then create a tour for you. So my response, we create customized tours for each individual. No tour is alike. Every tour is different. I had this one guy, he wanted a tour, individual tour. He was from Atlanta, Georgia. And we took him out. Of course, he wasn't driving. We have a convertible that we take people out in, and we dropped the top. We had a cooler of beer he could drink because he was not driving. And we took him out to, I'll tell you what his excursion was. We took him to Glendora, Mississippi, where the Emmett Till atrocities happened.
Right.
We took him by Parchman. Everybody's heard different stories about the Parchman prison system that's here in the Mississippi Delta.
That's right.
We took him to Fannie Lou Hamer's grave site. We took him to B.B. King's Museum, and we brought him back up through Mound Bayou, Mississippi, which is one of the only communities in Mississippi that was founded and incorporated by black folks.
Wow.
So you might say, why would this young 30-ish white guy want to go to a community like this? And it's because he respects the industriousness of the individuals who created that community. And for that, I have a lot of respect for him because he wants to know something outside of what has happened in his own culture. For example, when I go to D.C., one of the things that I enjoyed when I went to D.C., one of the things I enjoyed doing was checking out the Holocaust Museum. I got a chance when I was in graduate school to go to the Holocaust Museum in London as well. And guess what? It gave me the opportunity to have more sympathy towards the Jewish community so that I can, when I do communicate with folks who are Jewish and who have that background, we can have a conversation. We can have a point of reference.
Right.
And so there are a lot of people who are not just black folks, but you have people from all cultures, all ethnicities, all backgrounds coming to see what we have going on here. So long story short, every tour is different. Every tour, we share something different. And if a person wants to come back here, for example, there are two guys from California who came out for Juke Joint last year. They're coming back and they want another tour. They want to take a look at some of the same places they went this time, but they want us to go to some of the places they didn't get a chance to hit the last time. So, again, every tour is different. Every tour is customizable to each and every tourist specific needs, and that's what we want to get. We want a unique experience for each and every person.
Man, that's groovy. So now, when you have the bus load of folk, the 55 group, how does that work?
Oh, wow. We usually have a great driver who understands what we're trying to give off. We have some great music to start the tour off with. And when folks are getting on, we have some snacks, a few things for them to nibble on. We start the tour, and if it's an 8-hour tour, because we do 4-hour and 8-hour tours, if we do a 4-hour or 8-hour tour, we figure out what increments or what times we're going to put videos on, and it's a guided tour. So we do a lot of the talking. As you can see over the telephone, I can talk a lot. And so we talk on the tour, but we also have videos for people. And we may have a video of the Emmett Till atrocity, and we'll let people look at that 5 to 10 minute video and then come back and kind of dialogue and talk about it. We give our audience an opportunity to tell us how they're feeling after what they've just seen. You know, we might have a clip of, a blues musician, maybe Sonny Boy Williams, so that people can hear some of his music and then be able to associate with him a little bit more through the music. So there are videos, there's a lot of talking. Then we give people a chance to just kind of chill out. You know, it's very scenic. You know, you're from New York. You kind of got Manhattan, the Bronx,
right?
All those places. It's very rare that you see grass. And so what we do is try to give people a chance to see grass down here in hope, and I'm pitching to your New Yorkers again, in hopes that they want to move to the Mississippi Delta when they retire.
Well, you know what? Let me ask you this.
Come on.
Because wonder if one wants to move there and they're not retired. They want to take their brand and their business and come down there while they're in the thick of action.
Well, look, I would say there is no better time. There is no better time to come here if you want to participate in the creative economy. Ironically, my wife and I, we rented a facility in Clarksdale, and the owner of the building is an Australian guy.
Wow.
There are a lot of people who are moving to the Delta, and in Clarksdale there is a big number of Australians who are finding value in our area because they love the blues.
Right.
And so there are a lot of people who are coming to the community, buying property, investing in commercial and residential so that they can either create spaces for people to do business, or B, just to have a place 2 or 3 times a year that they can come and chill out.
Right.
You know, sometimes people want to come for a month and just walk away from their normal way of life and just put on some jeans and a T-shirt, tennis shoes, and boots and walk the streets of the Mississippi Delta in whatever community you so decide. And so in the back of our space in Clarksdale, Mississippi, we have an apartment. And so we had that apartment, and for the first year, we loved it. And I think this is going to be funny. My wife will eventually listen to this. We got pregnant, and so we stopped staying over there as much. And so we rented the back of our space out to a young lady who is from another part of the country, but is here for Teach for America. And so it gave her an opportunity to stay downtown, to enjoy the blues, the whole music scene, and to just really be a part of the community.
Right.
You know, there's nothing like downtown living. And so what we're trying to do with our efforts is to show that, you know what, you can live downtown in the Mississippi Delta. It's not going to be Manhattan, of course, but you can lock your door, walk around the corner, get a cup of coffee, get you a hot tamale, some ribs, some hot wings, listen to some music, and come back home and go to sleep.
All right.
And
I hope you
that's what
said
we want more people to partake of.
right. And hot tamale, right? Did I hear hot tamale?
You did hear hot
Oh
tamales,
man,
You
look,
did.
when I go down south to see my family, the first question I ask when I get off the plane, or if we drive, once we hit the state, where's the hot tamale?
Look, where is it? Where are the tamales? I tell you, this is interesting since we're talking about tamales. I grew up in Greenville, Mississippi,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a chance to study abroad to Mexico when I was in undergrad.
Mm.
And I came back home and I said, you know what? Black people did not create hot tamales. Black folks did not corner the hot tamale market. It's Hispanics and the Mexican culture. And so, long story short, I then went back to kind of research and figure out how the heck did hot tamales get to the Mississippi Delta.
That's right.
And so you have migrant workers who came over to the Mississippi Delta, Hispanic, who showed black folks who worked in fields and farm hands how to make tamales, because the cool thing about tamales is it's a low-cost product to make so that you can eat.
Right.
It fills your stomach up. And
Yes,
so
it does.
the Hispanic culture brought that to the African-American culture. And in many ways, that is now, many people in the African-American culture look at it as their own. But I got to give some homage to my Hispanic brothers and sisters. It's because of you guys that we're tearing tamales up in the Mississippi Delta.
Oh yeah. Not to mention, it's funny because one of the biggest conversations my wife and I have is the fact that cats like Charlie Patton, Son House, who is the reason why I played Delta Blues, and cats like that, a lot of times playing what's known as Spanish tuning. And the question is, how and where, right? How and where would a black person on the plantation get a Spanish tuning? And I wonder if it mimics the story of the tamale.
I would assume it would be the same place. And when you say Spanish tuning, what do you mean?
Okay, so you have a standard tuning of a guitar. You have
I see.
D minor, open G, which I believe is what they call Spanish tuning. And I'm just like, wow, this is, it's very interesting. But on another note, and you mentioned research, history, and the research and study of cultures, which is what talking about the blues is all about, the platform that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we're about is really trying to get the African American community to reach back and remember, study, and appreciate our heritage, our culture. And for what it's worth, Native American culture and African American culture was intertwined for a long time. With that being said, do you guys have special tours for the youth of the African American community? Are they involved in touring?
Oh, wow. I'm glad you brought that up. As a matter of fact, right now, my wife and I are engaged in writing a grant so that some young people can go on our tour free of charge. And so what we want to do is just make sure we make available the buses, and all they have to do is get on.
Right.
And so to go back to your original question, I think as far as the Native American culture, I grew up in Greenville, Mississippi, and right outside Greenville, Mississippi, there is an Indian mound. And my grandmother lived in Laymount, Mississippi, which is Bolivar County. And so we had to leave Washington County and go to Bolivar County, but we'd have to pass these Indian mounds. For years, I would go out to the Indian mounds and we would climb them, and I read all this history, but I didn't realize until I got older how important those mounds were and how important those relics of the past are to our culture and our history, especially our story.
Right.
And so, we take people out to the Indian mounds. We take them to Friars Point, Mississippi, where there are artifacts still there. I think it's important for us to make sure that we keep that alive, and young people know and understand, hey, this is a part of your culture. Mississippi has not always been what you see.
Right.
And it is our job, through the stories that we tell, both young and old alike, to attract others to not only come here to live, but to attract those youth to say, hey, you know what? Mississippi and the Mississippi Delta are not a bad place to live and to create and to start a family. And so I think that's it was a very good question.
Well, thank you. And I have another one. I hope this is just as good. You've mentioned on several occasions during our conversation that one of the things that you guys set out to do is to show that Mississippi is not what people think or thought or something to that nature. So with that being said, my question is, do people come there with the wrong idea, or not necessarily the wrong idea, but a preconceived notion of the climate of Mississippi based on the historical things that's happened there?
Oh, absolutely. I remember one of, I won't even go there first. I want to tell another story, and then I'll get to present day. When I was in college, me and three of my buddies traveled to New Orleans, and we were sitting around talking to some friends, some young ladies, and we were having a conversation about our state. And these young ladies, if my memory serves me correctly, one of them was from Colorado, one was from New York, and some other parts of the country, but none of them were from Mississippi.
They were white Americans?
No, they were African Americans.
Okay.
And we were all sitting around talking, and one of the questions I'll never forget, this girl asked, she said, so does everybody in Mississippi walk around barefooted?
Jeez.
And to be quite honest with you, at that time, it really offended me.
Absolutely.
But I had to step back and say, you know what? She really has not had any interaction with any people from Mississippi outside of me. So, you know what? This is an opportunity. This was an opportunity for me to educate her. And so, fortunately, I didn't take it the wrong way. I took the time to say, look, everything that you see on television, make sure you pay attention to things other than what you see on television, because her only exposure to Mississippi had been through movies and things that she had seen. I quickly explained to her, first of all, I walked in here with shoes, and all of my buddies have shoes on. First of all, and we made a joke out of it. I said, but you know what? There are people who walk around barefooted in every state. Every state. I said, so that is an unfair presumption to put on Mississippi. And so what she was trying to state was that, you know, is everybody in Mississippi backwoodish, or
right,
you know, is everybody country? And the truth is, we're not. There are a lot of smart, educated, intellectual, industrious people here, like myself. I'm a Mississippi Delta boy at heart and proud of it. I can say y'all with the best of them. But I'm proud of the fact that I can have a conversation and dialogue and deal with anybody, regardless of the race, regardless of where they're from. I'm well-traveled, and I praise God for those opportunities.
Absolutely.
And so what I want to do is help to showcase the Mississippi Delta in a different way. And so with that being said, we're fast-forwarding to present day. There are some people who come on our tours, and to be quite honest with you, they get shocked by, you know, how we present our area. They can't believe that we present it in a positive way, because they expect us to sound downtrodden and negative. And when they get off the bus, they feel empowered. They feel empowered to go out and talk about the Delta in a totally different way.
Right.
They feel like they have a responsibility to tell this new story that we've helped them to envision in their minds. And so that's what our tours are all about. We want you to hear about some of the contested stories that we have, but we don't want you to just think that that's all that we are. We're so much more.
Right.
We're so much more. There's so many facets to the Mississippi Delta, and one trip just probably won't do it any justice. You got to come back. And so that's why I'm pitching to everybody in New York. The Mississippi Delta is not only a great place to visit, but you can leave New York and move to Mississippi. I'm sure that Jack is going to cut a lot of this video off that you guys won't hear this pitch, but I'm going to go for it anyway.
No, I'm not. I'm going to leave that in. You know, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to do more than just leave it in. Because I love the Delta, and I really love what you and your wife are doing. I'm not even charging you for all these commercials that you're doing. And, you know, not
Jack, you and I have been trying to talk for, the last 5-6 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope you don't mind. I want to take the liberty to say I appreciate how you have a love for the blues, period, and just how you enjoy documenting other people's stories like mine and just giving us a platform to communicate some of the positive things that are going on in this particular area. So I know we're not done yet. I just want to say thanks. I'm having a great time, and I hope that I haven't messed it up so I can't come back.
No, not at all. Actually, it's totally the opposite because first and foremost, thank you. You know, and that's what this platform is about. And you eloquently stated is to give the journey, because this whole thing started from me recognizing and understanding my journey and my people, you know, going back and forth down south growing up, and then in about 2004 burying my pops in Belrose, which if I'm not mistaken, Belrose, Louisiana is all pearlies. and,
oh, wow.
Yeah, and then my grandpops from Gloucester, we buried him not too long after, but I believe we buried him in a military lot. But
I see.
Going back and forth, you know, and meeting and reconnecting with relatives to the backdrop of the Bayou and the Delta, while Old Negro Spiritual and Prison Songs and the Blues was playing, that just sparked this entire journey. And as I started sharing, I was like, there's got to be other people out there like me. And lo and behold, here we are today. And I just want to say, not for nothing, shame on that young lady, because she's not the only one. When I would come back, because I grew up in Brooklyn, first, me, my siblings and cousins are like first generation New York. You know, the rest of us was Chicago and down south, which ultimately where this blues DNA comes from. But when I would come back from down south and I would go in front of my building or on the porch of my pops and grandmother's house prior to them passing, I would go outside with barefooted on the Brooklyn concrete, and they would be laughing at me and not understanding. I just came back from down south.
Yeah,
you know, so I don't have a problem with that, you know, because I do that here.
And honestly, I believe it was less about the barefootedness. It was more about the culture. She was curious about the culture, but the only way she could present the question was to bring up that issue. And so
right.
If I could see her again, I would give her love. And that conversation was one of the conversations that sparked my love for the place that I'm from, because it made me realize, look, when people have something seemingly negative, or they appear to be going down the path of talking bad about the place where you're from, you know, you got to take up for it.
You do.
So I certainly represent the Mississippi Delta every day through my dialogue and my way of life. And a friend of mine told me I have a Mississippi Delta lifestyle. And so my wife and I live in a community, 2,500 people. You know, literally next to us is there are a couple of houses, but one house from us is a church and a huge cotton field. And we love it. We absolutely love it. We just had our first kid. We got a 5-month-old.
Oh man, congratulations!
5 months, and so look, I'm really ecstatic about raising my daughter out there. I think it's a great quality of life. It's a great way of life, and you know, I want to do everything I possibly can from a educational, from an entrepreneurial, and or otherwise perspective, so that she can come up in a community that she's proud of and also that she can grow in and help to contribute to. So I know I may be the ultimate optimist as it relates to the Mississippi Delta, but that's just the way that I'm built.
That's what's up. And I wouldn't say, there's nothing wrong with that. I would encourage most people to take that attitude and mindset on, because when you feel, believe, and live that way, your community is livable. Right, because I think one of the biggest one of the biggest issues that we're facing, at least I can speak for the black communities I grew up in the Latino communities I either hung out in, or grew up around. Some of us don't take pride in where we live. Most do. So for those of you who do, I'm not talking to you, but there are a percentage of people who don't necessarily take enough pride in where we live. And that actually is what hurts the community, and then as the snowball effect. I would also say that it's not just, me from Brooklyn and Southern folk that get that sort of stereotype of coming outside barefoot, because I grew up around a lot of people from the Caribbean, and they come outside on concrete with barefoot, as well as Latin people. So
right.
That's I think that's more of a comfort thing than a culture. But I want to ask
very
you.
Interesting.
Yes, but I would like to ask you this, because you mentioned cotton fields. Now I remember the first time I saw a cotton field, a plantation, and it wasn't the same type of plantation as it once were, but it was still a cotton field that was still growing cotton, and it was still on a plantation.
Right.
What? I guess this is a two-part question. First part question is, how do you feel when you pass them, see them, knowing its history, and how does your clients and patrons feel when you take them past there and give them the history of it?
First of all, for me, I know that agriculture was, and still is big business here. I do hate that so many blacks have had to continue to endure the consequences or the long-term negative effects in this area that agriculture created, because a lot of people made money from an agricultural perspective. However, there are a lot of people who still suffer from the fact that suffer from generational poverty because they were never given the opportunity to truly be empowered from a entrepreneurial or perspective.
Right.
And so it's a lack of education for some folks, and just lack of opportunities. Period. I do know that our land and our landscape is a thing that, even though we don't operate and function in the same way, we now have to move into a new realm. Well, I know some farmers. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was at the courthouse and I talked to one. One of my neighbors actually is one of my former neighbors was a crop duster. And I spoke to a farmer last week. So my point is, agriculture and the hierarchy are not the same as it once was. And so I want to make that point. Because a lot of people, they assume some things about the Mississippi Delta and Mississippi that are not true.
Right.
And so our hierarchy is not where you see people picking cotton anymore. If they go out there, they're picking it just so that they can take it home with them and bring it back. There's machinery that does all of that now. But you now have a situation where you have a lot of people who are wealthy and some who are not. And so what we are trying to do is make sure that we maintain our agricultural identity for this state, which is nothing like the agricultural identity that we had. But most importantly, try to create a middle class where people have jobs, where they can be able to create a lifestyle for their families, and I don't believe it will be able to be done via the masses with agriculture. So we have to start looking for some other options so that the masses can win. I hope my comment made sense.
No, it made a lot of sense, and I also appreciate the fact that you called it what it was, agriculture, because that's really what that line of work is, that industry is and was. It's just unfortunate that, it took me until adulthood and to do a lot of studying on my own to realize that's what our folks, our ancestors, great grandparents, and some, grandparents did on the plantation. They were doing agriculture. And I don't think I really don't think most people correlate or make the connection. Is that what that was? Wow, that's deep. That's a lot of history. There's a lot of spirits down there. And you know what? Just on a fun fact note, Mojo Hand and all of the voodooisms and things of that nature that is spoken about in a lot of the old Delta, as they call it, the primitive Delta blues, and also in some of the Chicago blues, as well as the folk tales and things that were passed down. Sure. Is there still a lot of that out there?
Interestingly enough, in Clarksdale, Mississippi, there is a nonprofit that I recently did some work with called the Crossroads Cultural Arts Center. They're based in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And if you all have never heard of them, there's a band called Afrosippi. And Afrosippi has a lead singer that goes around to high schools and tells kids about the connection to the blues here in Mississippi, the connection between the blues here in Mississippi and traditional African music. And I think that's dope on a lot of different fronts. Most particularly, it gives young people the opportunity to see, what, just because you don't like the blues, because you have young people who are into hip-hop or who are into other types of music.
Right.
It makes them have an appreciation because there is a story about the blues that is beyond Mississippi and beyond the Mississippi Delta.
Right.
That is engaging to young people. Young people need to be drawn in sometimes, and I think by telling those kinds of stories, like the ones that you just described with Mojo Hand, and I think it really draws them in. And so, yes, we have begun to educate our young people in some pockets here about the connection between Africa and the Mississippi Delta. And so a lot of people can, from a musical perspective, I cannot because I'm not that musically inclined, they can hear some of the nuances or some of the similarities between African music and the blues, or some of the field calls,
right?
That were created way back when.
That's groovy, and that's the truth. Do you guys do a tour on the Blues Trail as well?
We do. As I said before, we will customize any tour for anybody. If somebody says we don't want, we only want a musical tour, we'll do it. If they say they just want nothing but civil rights, we'll do it. If they say they want nothing but Native American history, we'll do it. As a matter of fact, there was one place that I did not mention, Greenwood, Mississippi. Greenwood has the Mississippi Delta. It's the Mississippi Delta Museum, and they have a lot of Native American artifacts. But even cooler thing about Greenwood is it's where a lot of scenes from the movie The Help were filmed. Have you ever seen The Help?
Absolutely. That's my mother and my youngest daughter's favorite movie. They watch it together. One of them.
It's funny in parts, but it's so real
in others.
In some parts that it just makes you cry because of some of the things some people had to go through. But it's a very telling story of what the Mississippi Delta might have been like in some situations. And of course, you have some things that are made for movie, but I think the one thing that movies do is it creates dialogue. You were talking about a good friend of mine before we got on the call, Jason Rochelle.
Yes.
Jason is a great documentary filmmaker, has an amazing eye, and most importantly, he loves the Mississippi Delta. And so he and I have had several conversations around stories that come out of this area. And so I'm hopeful and optimistic that The Help won't be the last movie that has come out of the Delta. And so if you ever get to Greenwood, Mississippi, they have a riding tour of all of the houses that were in The Help, and also the church that was in The Help. So Greenwood, Mississippi is another place that you want to put on your bucket list to visit when you come to the Mississippi Delta.
I hope y'all hear it. As for me, that's not a bucket list. That's part of pleasure and business, because I'll be down there real soon.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Now, tell the good folks where to find you on social media and on the internet.
Oh, that's easy. We're on Facebook and Twitter, and also Instagram. And so you can find us on Facebook at Real Delta Tours and Artistry. Real Delta Tours and Artistry. You can find us on Twitter at Real Delta Tours. Real Delta Tours. You can find us on Instagram at Real Delta Made. Our Instagram page is specifically for our handmade goods, but our Facebook and Twitter account, you'll see both communication about our tours, about our handmade goods, and also about some of our art events and just stuff that's going on in the Mississippi Delta. Like I said, second weekend in April, Juke Joint Festival is going down in Clarksdale, Mississippi. We're going to be partying and having a good time, and we'd love to see anybody that's out there listening. I don't think it's too late to buy a ticket to get here. And I didn't state that correctly. It's the third weekend in April.
Okay.
It's April the 15th and 16th, if you can get to Clarksdale, Mississippi. And when you come, look me up.
Absolutely.
We'll certainly have a couple things going on in our space in downtown Clarksdale during that time. And but yes, we're based in Clarksdale, Mississippi right now. But at the end of April, ironically, we're moving to Cleveland, Mississippi.
Really?
Our location will change. We're moving to Cleveland, Mississippi at the end of April. So our event in April will be our going away event in Clarksdale. But we'll do it with a bang and then transition to Clarksdale, which is still a part of the Mississippi Delta.
All right,
we'll be
now.
moving to Cleveland, which is also part of the Mississippi Delta. I'm sorry.
All right, now. I like how that sounds. All right, well, look, it was great finally catching up, and please believe this is not the last time we'll be doing this.
Oh, I know it, but I do have a prediction. I think you're going to get so many calls once you air this of people who are questioning real estate and how they can rent property and move to the Delta or just timeshare, whatever the case may be. You might call me and you might get a little upset with me because I'm hopeful some people will bite. We just threw some bait out there today.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not going to get upset. For the most part, I'm going to be spending a lot of time out there soon because I'm working on a project with Jason. I definitely want to get on one of these tours, and I play the blues, so I got to be in Mississippi.
Well, look, I'm looking forward to finally meeting you, and when you come, we'll customize a tour expressly for you with a lot of blues nuances to it. How about that?
That's what I'm talking about. That is definitely what I'm talking about. All right, good folks. You know what it is. You've been bluesing. We're talking about the blues. Our special guest today was Abe Hudson from the Real Delta Blues Tour. Well, not Delta Blues, but Real Delta Tours and Artistry. Blues is part of it. Civil rights is part of it. Native American history is part of it. This is something that you should look into with your family. Go down there. If it's your history and heritage, you definitely need to go down there. If it is not, I would encourage you to definitely go down there and get an understanding of this great American history. And as you know, keep two things going. Keep God first and keep on bluesing.